Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 68. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us on this Monday show. Steelers Nation, unfortunately, not a victory Monday for you guys. Pittsburgh losing to the Kansas City Chiefs in blowout fashion, 36-10. Pittsburgh dropping to 7-7-1 on the season, and outside looking in right now in terms of the playoff picture, but still could turn things around with a solid performance the next 2 weeks against the Browns and the Ravens. But for the here and now, Dave, busy day here, unfortunate loss. Also want to wish you and everyone else a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. The Steelers, though, did not offer many good presents on Sunday.
Yeah, the Grinch stole Christmas, right? Pringle bells.
You're still workshopping that one, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm working that one through the underground crowd there.
Okay.
Oh, gloom, despair, and agony on me, right? Deep dark depression, excessive misery. I kind of felt this coming. I mean, obviously, we both predicted a loss to the Chiefs here. About, quarter and a half into that, I became kind of cognizant of the fact that I don't think there's going to be a fourth quarter comeback in this one. And obviously, it wasn't probably. There've been a lot of bad performances throughout the season, right? I mean, you go back to the game against the Bengals. I mean, it was right along, in line with that game there. I don't know which one was worse because, boy, that Bengals game sure was bad. But this one certainly rivaled it.
It really did. And yeah, as you said, from the word go, Pittsburgh got down. They got themselves in a big hole early, and you knew, just given the talent and overall firepower of KC and playing on the road in a tough environment in Arrowhead, it was unlikely Pittsburgh was going to mount a comeback, and that's what happened. So this one's just a failure in all three, aspects: offense, defense, special teams. Really very few players, very few areas performed well. It's pretty bad when you're talking about, hey, the punter did a pretty good job. That's usually a bad sign for a game recap.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're talking about stars of the game being, a punter, first time, punter for you, that's definitely a huge, huge problem. Look, there were minor positives along the way. I think we'll try to pick out a few of them. It won't take long, but just so much negative. And look, let's not kid ourselves. And I tweeted this to you guys last night, direct message. What we saw, unfortunately, there's more of it, but what we saw in the game on Sunday against the Chiefs is a lot of what we have seen all season long. The only problem being there was more of it, and this time they just didn't overcome and survive and come away with a win, because we've seen this team play poorly for the most part throughout the season. They've just managed to win a few games that they probably should have lost in there. Now, obviously they've had some wins that been okay and along those lines, but I don't think we saw anything earth-shattering new that we hadn't really technically seen before all season. It was just more of it. And then obviously the fourth quarter rolled around. They just didn't have any kind of comeback in them, as opposed to what they've done other times this season.
Yeah, they played the same way they played most of the year, but they played an opponent who would not permit them to get back into that game after playing poorly. They would not sit there and say, okay, you played poorly for a half, we'll allow you to get back in the game in the second half there and let you guys get going. We're going to kind of just, put a nail in the coffin early in this one by halftime and just call the game over right there. And so that's kind of the way I view it. You played the way that you had played, but you also played against a top-tier opponent. And you cannot afford to play in terms of the Steelers' slow starts, getting down early, just kind of playing unfundamental football overall. When you play, the Vikings, a more middling team, you can kind of get away with that from time to time. When you play the Chiefs, it's just not going to happen.
Right. And, this is obviously a Chiefs team that kind of have seen different versions of throughout the year. Got out, after a nice start, went through that kind of lull there where people say, wow, is this Chiefs team, going to be a team that's going to compete? And then obviously they trade for Melvin Ingram really about that time since they've traded for Melvin Ingram. They've been back going the opposite direction again. And, you look back the last, 4 or 5 games for them have been good performances for them, I think, overall. Mm-hmm. And, they obviously have the offensive firepower. They've got an offensive line. They didn't even have. Imagine how that game, on Sunday would have went had they had Kelsey on top of it.
Right. And Hill was a non-impact player in this game, at least on the box score.
Right. Kudos to them. They took away their best player, which you would expect them to do. In fact, I tweeted earlier today, I don't care if it takes me a lead pipe. There's no way I was going to let Tyreek Hill beat me, and he didn't. But the problem is they had more than enough other weapons and obviously a great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes and a solid defense. And then obviously the ineptitude that Steelers have on offense played right into the hands as well, too. So, it doesn't make you feel any better to lose it the way you did to a team that's, you might end up going representing the AFC in the Super Bowl here. But bad is bad. But, they did play a good team.
Mm-hmm. I want to get into the housekeeping portion of this past couple of days here in a moment, Dave, but it kind of had a Packers-like feel where you take away the top weapon, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, but you have such a good quarterback that he can play, a different style and throw to different guys. And in that game against Green Bay, Randall Cobb has 2 touchdowns, and this one is Byron Pringle with 2 scores. And so that idea of taking away the top weapon, I certainly understand that, but I think it's only most effective against lesser quarterbacks who really rely on their top guy as that crutch. When you have a Rodgers or Mahomes, they're just as comfortable throwing to their tertiary options, their number 2, their number 3, as opposed to their number 1 kind of top guy.
Yeah, but remember in that Packers game, it felt like they had more of a chance in that game than they definitely did.
Sure, yeah, I'm just talking about the idea of taking away the top weapon again with the quarterback. That's all I'm talking about.
Right. I see.
Yeah. All right, Dave, let's get into the housekeeping section. And this was a very busy Christmas day for the Steelers and for the Chiefs as well, given all the COVID situations. For Pittsburgh here, it's been a flurry of roster moves on Saturday, right around, I think, 2:30 or so. It was announced that Presley Harvin III, the Steelers rookie punter, was ruled out of the game for personal reasons. Sadly, his dad had passed away on Christmas morning. We knew his dad was sick, was at the Titans game, and Harvin had an Instagram post that talked about how ill his father was. And so he was understandably ruled out of the game, which meant Pittsburgh had to scramble and find a punter. They signed 2 to the roster, or whatever the mechanism is. I think 1 went to the practice squad and then elevated to the roster. That's Corliss Waitman, who was a rookie punter in camp last year for the team and also part of this offseason before getting drafted after Harvin was, or before getting cut after Harvin was drafted. And then Cameron Nizalik, I think is how you say it, was also signed. Waitman ultimately became the starting punter in this game. And so they had 3 punters on the roster currently. The team also activated J.C. Hassenauer from injured reserve, and so he ended up playing in yesterday's game. And the team also elevated 3 players from the practice squad. Those were running back Trey Edmonds, outside linebacker John Simon, and guard Rashard Coward. Simon, by the way, is wearing a very ghastly number 38 jersey. I would like them to change that very much. But bottom line here is Waitman making his NFL debut as a Steelers punter yesterday. And then also Steven Sims, I should mention, was replaced on the practice squad COVID list. And so another member of the Steelers going on the COVID list.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the minutia within all of that. And let's start with the punters first and foremost. Waitman was on the Patriots practice squad, so they signed him off of that practice squad. Now, I believe the rule is on that you got to pay him for 3 games.
Right, okay. But you don't have to roster him for 3 games. You just have to pay him for 3 games. Right? Is there a difference there?
I think it counts as I think it counts. I'm not totally sure if they've changed that or not. I know It used to be that you could just, I think, pay them the game salaries there, and obviously it goes up against the salary cap and all like that. I don't know specifically if they have to hold a roster spot. So
because that's going to be important for a punter. Sure. Obviously, we're only keeping 1 on the 53.
Right, but first and foremost, you got to pay him 3 full games worth of wages when you sign him off of another team's practice squad. There, that prevents teams from playing, games and pilfering a guy and then cutting him, after a game just because he was a member of the former team and that kind of stuff there.
Right.
So going to be interesting. Well, I think we'll learn a little something when it comes to Waitman there, but he was on the Patriots practice squad. As far as the other punter there, interesting. With Cameron Nizelak, is that how you say it? The thing with him that the more I started to think about, I was wondering, man, why in the heck are they signing two punters? And then the more I thought about it, it became crystal clear, and it was really quite brilliant, if you ask me. Probably about the only brilliant thing that the Steelers did over the weekend here. But Waitman. Here's the thing with Waitman. Remember, he can punt and kick, right? He can do place kicks for you as well too. So essentially, you had a player in him that could serve both as a punter and as a place kicker. And then obviously, I think the other punter, Cameron Nizelak, is mainly a punter. So what you did is you had the extra roster spot or extra elevation because of obviously you had all those players out on the COVID list there. So you got a free elevation in him, and you could just decide to make one of those guys inactive. My theory behind this is they just protected. They had the extra kind of roster spot to use, that they did this in essence to kind of protect themselves over the final several hours there from COVID issues there, because essentially what you had two punters and two place kickers essentially, if you look at it, between the three players there. So I found that kind of me, I like to dive deep into the minutiae and why this happened and why that happened. That's the way I see that going down there, is they were kind of protecting themselves in the process of anything happening to one single player COVID related.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a factor, because I imagine those guys have to get tested as soon as they come in the Steelers facility. I guess they obviously just flew into KC and met them there at the Steelers hotel. It's also probably a chance to work both guys out pregame and see what guy looked better, because you're just scrambling just to find a guy, and you don't want to pin your hopes maybe on one guy that you haven't, sight unseen. And so I think you bring both into warm-ups, 2 hours before kickoff, let those guys boot a couple. And obviously Waitman was the guy. Tomlin said they chose Waitman. They were more familiar with him. Boz was more familiar with him from holding aspect. Again, Waitman in camp last year with the team in 2020. It spent part of the offseason this year with the team as well until the draft. And so I think there was just more of a familiarity thing with him. And then Waitman, to his credit, punted well. Just two of them, but 58 and 63-yard punts. The latter, unfortunately, rolled into the end zone, but good punts overall for Corliss Waitman in his NFL debut.
Yeah, when a blowout goes the way that it did, and you only end up punting twice in the game. Something else, quite a few other bad things have probably happened in that game, like turnovers or
there's either really good things or really bad things when you're punting twice in a game.
Right. Either you convert to some fourth down, something along those. But obviously, a lot of negative there. So Cameron Nizelak obviously will revert to the practice squad today, along with the other players that were elevated to the practice squad or activated to the practice squad there. So now, the big thing to watch is what's going to happen with Harvin and what's going to happen with Corliss Waitman, through the rest of the week. I would imagine that Waitman might stay on your, in other words, you don't have to do anything with him right now, because remember, this team's got Kevin Dotson hopefully going to come back by this next week, by Saturday or Sunday. So they're going to have to open up a roster spot for him eventually, and you never know what other COVID issues you might get. So Waitman might at least hang around. Obviously, you got to pay him, but he might hang around here for the rest of this week. Especially with Harvin going through what he's going through right now. For all we know, Harvin might miss the next game too because of arrangements and all like that.
Right, that's possible. We'll just have to wait and see. So it's very sad news. Our thoughts and prayers with the Harvin family. All right, Dave, let's talk about
that. Was a lot more exciting to talk about than probably what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, let's talk about next here, Dave, and talk about this loss again, 36-10. The Chiefs winning this one. Pittsburgh falling to 7-1 on the season. And I'll just read a quote here from Tomlin on Tuesday, and it was ultimately one that came into play during the game on Sunday. He said, quote, and this is about Kansas City, quote, "In recent weeks, their starts have been significant. With our recent experience, that's just something that can't transpire. We can't play the game in that way. And so essentially saying you cannot get down early against the Chiefs. They've done that in many games this year, and they've won those games where they get off to a hot start. And so Pittsburgh found themselves, of course, in a 14-0 hole late in the first quarter. And from there, you just felt like you were playing catch up the rest of the way, because you were playing catch up the rest of the way. And Pittsburgh never made this game competitive. And it all was, born out of that fast start for KC.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Steelers obviously received the kickoff and they showed a little bit something coming out, right? Nice play to Deontay Johnson to start things out, I think, and move the chains there after a -2. What was that? A pin and pull to open the game on? Over to the right-hand side there when it went for -2 yards, and then you get the play down the field to Deontay. Nice catch for 18 yards, and then back to try to the running game again, and just absolutely nothing. And then the drive, obviously stalled on Ben Roethlisberger getting sacked for the first time in the game. You punt that ball away, and it seemed like for a long time before they got to see it again there, because the Chiefs then matriculated the football down the field, as the great Hank Stram would say, who is also the head coach of the Chiefs there for a little while there. 14 plays, 73 yards, and ended on a Clyde Edwards-Helaire run to the left side there after a hella collision included Robert Spillane and Alex Highsmith, but that collision unfortunately kind of knocked both guys off of the ball carrier there, and to Edwards-Helaire credit, he was able to scoot over off the left side for a touchdown. But that long drive, especially when they converted a third down and a fourth down on that drive as well too. Yeah, you kind of felt the air slowly being let out of this thing already, and you're down 7-0, and then you get the football back. One play, some trickeration, flea flicker. Ben floats one over the head of Ray McLeod, interception, and then you're just asking them to boat race you.
Yeah, it's tired legs on the field. The Chiefs, again, dominated time of possession overall in this game, especially in the first half. The numbers look closer than they really were in the first half. I think the Chiefs had the ball for exactly 20 minutes. The Steelers exactly 10 minutes. In the first half, I believe it was even more lopsided than that. And yeah, it's a 14-play drive. Takes up 8 minutes. You get one play offensively. You turn the ball over. Defense back out there on a short field. They give another touchdown. It's 14-0 in the first quarter. And from there, you're sitting there going, it's going to be a long day. And so that's been the story on this team. They've lost a time of possession battle in 6 straight games. They're not converting on possession downs. Their third down defense is not good enough. The red zone defense in this game was especially poor. KC started the game 4-4 in the red zone, finished 4-6. And so you're just asking a tired defense to do even more, and they're not getting stopped, and they're playing a lot, and it just kind of all snowballs on you.
Yeah, and you went into this thing knowing, well, you can't, do you really want to blitz Patrick Mahomes, or do you want to try to take your chances at rushing 4 and 3 and dropping in coverage and see if you can at least maybe keep them in the pocket and get some pressure that way? Well, it was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. When they would rush 4, especially in those first, 3.5 drives, zero pressure. It didn't felt like they were even smelling, if he had deodorant on, never got close to him that way. And, when you give a quarterback like him that kind of time, he early on, it felt like he was just taking what the Steelers were giving him, and he was, and letting guys run through zones, and had plenty of time to do that. And man, you get even into, I think it was the first Pringle touchdown from the 5-yard line. He had an eternity back there.
7 seconds. I timed it last night. He had 7 seconds.
Oh, 7 seconds. It felt like it. It felt like 17 seconds. But you can't give any quarterback that kind of time, let alone a guy like Patrick Mahomes, and that's a long time to ask those guys to stay plastered to guys in the end zone there, and just zero pressure overall, and especially in that, it felt like in the first half overall, just could not. And whenever you did flush him out of the pocket too, he was able to nobody extends the play like him, and he was able to run out. One of those times I think over to the right side, and a guy got free behind. I think the running back Gore got free behind Minka, and boom, 50 yards down the field later. Double explosive play off of an extended play type situation there. So when you did blitz them, they saw it coming. And I don't think it was much in there, but obviously had to play a lot of zone in this one, because you can't expect those guys to stay to have contain when you play man across.
Yeah, the blitz rate in this game was low. I'm still going through some of my charting, but it's pretty low. I've gone through about the first half so far, and it's probably 10-15% of the time. It's usually a linebacker with Schobert or Spillane or something like that blitzing, not Nichols, or Norwood did once, I think, but not a whole lot to note there. But yeah, I mean, overall, just all day to throw, no pressure, just very little resistance overall defensively. And again, just poor red zone play. The goal was to hold KC to field goals, not touchdowns. They're going to move the ball. They're going to put up yards and get some, conversions, and Mahomes is going to scramble. But can you limit those things? And Pittsburgh could not in this one. And again, being on the field so much does not help in that regard. But yeah, a lot of soft zones. KC, a lot of third down conversions on that first drive. They're facing 3rd and 7. And they convert to Tyreek Hill for 10 yards, and they don't have another third down until they're at the Steelers' 8-yard line. They convert on 4th and 1 there, and then score a couple plays later. So just bad situational football. Pittsburgh turned the football over. They didn't create takeaways, and you're already in a tough spot against KC. You add those factors into the equation, it's next to impossible to win.
Outside of that, first 2 or 3 plays of that opening possession of the Chiefs there, I mean, the Chiefs from that point forward really did a good job, I think, of staying ahead of the chains. And whenever you stay ahead of the chains on a team, especially like that Steelers defense, and missing all the pieces that they're missing and all, it is very easy for them to stay on schedule, because you keep them really off balance there. The pass rusher still got to kind of respect the run, and their offensive line. That's what them and the Colts, especially, but the Colts were missing 3 interior guys in their game this past week here. But the Colts, when they're healthy, with Glowinski and
Nelson and Kelly. And,
Quinn, what's his name?
Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, Quentin Nelson. That's a hell of a damn offensive line there. And the Chiefs really can almost rival that, right? That Creed Humphrey was just phenomenal. I tried to watch him as much as I could during the live game, obviously, and he really lived up to the billing, what we already kind of knew that he was there. But their running game got clicking, especially after that first touchdown there, and they stayed on schedule, and they even lost Edwards-Helaire during this thing, and they still had a couple of other guys in Darrell Williams and the Gore kid. Williams and Gore, by the way, I was going to fit this in, undrafted free agents. Just want to throw that out there. All right. Fungible.
Yeah, there it is. I was waiting for it.
Excuse me. But they really ran the football well, no matter who was in there, and did a good job of staying ahead of the chains.
Yeah, they got their run game going in the second half when they were up big. I thought in the first half still, although the run game wasn't a big factor in this one because Mahomes was throwing it at will, piles were consistently falling forward. Chiefs backs were getting 3-4 yards at the end of runs, and
felt like 5 yards every run. It really did. It felt like 5 yards every run.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that I think came at the end, where it looks like a 3-yard run, it becomes 5 at the end, and just frustrating things like that. But to give you a stat here, Patrick Mahomes has 2 career starts against the Steelers. He's completing nearly 80% of his passes, 584 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, a passer rating of 148.2, which means he's only thrown 3 more incompletions than he has touchdowns against the Steelers in 2 meetings. So it's some Brady-like stats where it just dominates. Of course, Mahomes dominates most teams, but he's had 2 excellent games against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, that was, definitely. I probably didn't even have to. Well, he did get sacked a couple of times in that game, but and he was out of the game by when?
Early fourth quarter.
Early fourth quarter. All in a day's work.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not sure what else to really talk about here for the Steelers defense in this one. In terms of bright spots, Minka came to play as he always does. The guy never had more than 10 tackles in a game prior to last week. He's got 14 against the Titans and 12 against the Chiefs. And so I'm like 95, 99% sure he set a record in Steelers history for tackles by a defensive back. He's up to, what is it, 114? Yeah, 114 total on the season. So he'll probably crack the top 20 list all time in NFL history for tackles by a DB, at least since 1987, according to PFR. And so said it all year, say it again. Never a good sign when your free safety is leading your team and has a historically high number of tackles.
Yeah, and he's due a contract too. It's gonna be some hazard pay.
Yeah.
And if you went into this season thinking that during the offseason that Minka might only be, I don't know, top 3, 4, 5 paid safety, he's shown another side of him that's going to result in him being either the top or the next to top paid safety. He'll end up probably the highest paid safety in the NFL.
I'd be shocked if he wasn't.
At this point, look, unfortunately, we had to see another side of his game develop, and here's to him not having to have to tackle as much in seasons moving forward, even though we know he can.
He'll have to add a clause in that contract to get me some dang front seven run defense. So I don't got to, put my face in the fan of some 250-pound running back and just to lose 36-10. I mean, he's putting his body on the line, and you certainly appreciate it, but just getting, in blowout losses and in bad run defensive performances. And so dude's trying, and he had, I think, 2 breakups in coverage as well. And so, I mean, the guy's making plays everywhere, and you can't ask for anything else. You just wish you could clone this guy and put 10 other Minkas out there.
Right. But probably not on a defensive line.
At this point, was really that much worse than Henry Mondo or I saw Loudermilk get crunched once in this game. And so overall, I came in this game there with no Chris Wormley in this one, no Pat Freiermuth with some injuries. You mentioned on the injury front here for Pittsburgh in this one. Mike Tomlin mentioned 2 names after the game, both along the offensive line. Center Kendrick Green with a calf and right guard Trey Turner with a knee. Seemed to happen around the same time they exited together. And neither finished that game. Haas now replacing Green at center and Joe Haig replacing Turner at right guard. So we'll see what their status is for Tuesday or whenever Mike Tomlin speaks this week. And then, of course, for Monday's game against the Browns.
And this is in no way, you look at the Baltimore Ravens and injury excuses just fly out the window. Okay. But do you remember what heading into the season before the whole, to it thing and all like that, what we speculated that the 6 defensive linemen would have been on the 53-man roster?
I know there was just debate about, could Buggs get a hat, maybe even be a 7th, Loudermilk's fit in there, Carlos Davis. It was kind of all those guys at the back end of the roster.
Well, it was obviously Cameron Hayward, right? It was Tyson Alualu, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Stephon Tuitt, that's 3. Chris Wormley's 4. You had to think Loudermilk was going to make the 53 as like number 6. And then I guess it came down to, was it going to be Buggs or Carlos Davis kind of being that fit guy, right?
Right.
All right. Now, how many guys did you have in uniform of those guys? How many guys dressed for that game last night? You had Hayward, you had Loudermilk, and you had Davis, right?
Right.
I mean, and 2 of those guys you were hoping weren't going to have to play a lot this season.
Yeah, and Loudermilk and Davis, and Loudermilk started in this one. And yeah, just, defensive line was a perceived strength in terms of talent and top end and depth this summer, and it got tested pretty quickly. Tuitt hasn't played at all this year. He won't play this year. And, Alualu's out for the season 5 quarters into the year. And so you really stressed some young guys and guys who should not be in roles that they are currently in.
Now, the experience will be good for a guy like Loudermilk, but I mean, you get what you get right now, this part of the season,
The growing pains of it, for sure. Right. Not fun to deal with. And so any other thoughts here on the Chiefs offense and the Steelers defense here? Really isn't a ton to note. UG3 played some in dime packages. They were going with 1 defensive lineman dime packages. And so they would have 2 inside linebackers on the field, but UG3 are placing, I think it was usually Joe Schobert actually in dime. And so add another guy into that off-ball linebacker rotation?
I thought for most part Spillane did okay coming downhill, but anytime
had that missed tackle on the touchdown.
Right. I mean, other than that, I mean, there weren't a lot of highlights defensive wise anyway, but you get him out in space. I think he's targeted like 5 times or something in coverage and gave up quite a few receptions in there. The ugliness of what is the inside linebacker position for the Steelers, reared its ugly head again overall. They're going to have to do something at that position during the offseason. There's just no way that a 3 of Schobert, Bush, and Spillane, they just can't move forward with that. They lack severely at the inside linebacker position, not just one spot, but 2 spots there as well too. Marcus Allen, who missed the game, obviously isn't an answer there. UG3 is the bottom of the barrel that they had to scrape in this one as well. So you want to circle something for the Steelers to have to pay attention, position for the Steelers have to pay attention to during the offseason. You would think it would be that position there, because they just, Spillane gave you a lot of effort. And once again, downhill, probably not a linebacker on this team that plays as well now that Vince Williams is on this team, being able to play downhill, but it ends there. Witherspoon continues to show you a couple things, I think, week in and week out. So there's something there, but that guy's good. That guy's in this bad season for this defense, that guy's sticking out now, and he's making himself some money along the way here, I think, and he would be apt, unless the Steelers blow his socks off ahead of free agency here. I think it would be silly for Witherspoon not to test free agency, to at least see what the market is out there for him. Travius Adams, I thought, had a couple of nice snaps in that game. Swam over the right guard, I think, on one of those, and got a good pressure on Mahomes and forced him to hurry a football that, had he not, probably would have completed down the field there. I'm trying to think what else. Edmonds came up, made an okay like two run stops that I think caught my eye. He did overrun the pass over there to the right sideline that ended up in the end zone, though, so there was some negative there. Not a lot to, Cameron Hayward obviously had a sack, but really for the most part didn't have a great game by his standards. And that's about all the positive I think I have from the defense.
Highsmith did have a forced fumble that was unfortunately recovered by Joe Thuney, and so that was a nice play. I think it was more of an extended play, so it wasn't immediate pressure, but you take any sort of pressure in this game. But yeah, pretty thin positives here for the Steelers defense, and it doesn't get much better for the Steelers offense in this one, as they just did a whole lot of nothing in this game. And I don't even know really where to begin with this one. It's kind of the same story. Bad on possession downs, 5 or 13 overall, and it's felt even worse than that on third down. They ran the ball in the second half because the Chiefs allowed them to. It was very much like the Vikings game. They played a lot of too high, and they could run the ball that way. But in the first half, this team barely had the ball. They did nothing with it besides turn the football over.
Yeah, a lot of what we've seen prior to this. The offensive line played just poor, and you didn't have you had Gentry in there, and like I said, I don't imagine he's going to grade out very good on this thing overall. Gentry, as far from the blocking aspect of it, you have Chase Claypool missing blocks on the edge. You have little Ray over there. Ray give you effort in the blocking game. It's just, you put him in some situations. I don't know how you expect him to kind of win. He'll give you the effort, but that's it. Claypool got blown up. If you go back and you look at that fourth down toss over there, you spent a whole podcast talking about that play. But Claypool gets sat down real easy on that, and they just easily just flood that side over there and force that to the sideline. Trying to think what else. Our buddy Kendrick Green on the ground again. It just, LeGlue, not a great game, I don't think, overall. Trey Turner might have been the best, but that's only from a pass protection standpoint of it. You have your tackles getting ate up by Melvin Ingram in this one. it just wasn't good. And Ben knew that wasn't going to have a lot of time in the pocket. I think he rushed quite a few of these throws in this game, especially the flea flicker one. That ended up in a pick, and there was just no consistency whatsoever. And as you stated, when they were able to run the football a little bit, and get some successful runs, it was pretty much just the Chiefs saying, just don't home run us.
Yeah, exactly. I thought there was a lot of interior pressure in this game, a lot of pockets collapsing. Dan Moore really struggled against Melvin Ingram's bull rush, and you can bet Ingram was calling on some of his training camp work and practice work and in-season work with the Steelers, and kind of knew what the strengths and weaknesses were of Dan Moore. Chris Jones was a wrecker as usual, and then the worst play was that second half forced fumble. They try to run a fake end around screen pass, and Green loses immediately, and Ben gets the football stripped and taken out, and it's just a comedy of errors. And 3 turnovers in this game. Deontay's unforced error of that forced fumble there, the flea flicker interception. I mean, you turn the ball over 3 times. You don't have one takeaway in this game against the Chiefs. You are not going to win that game. I don't care who you are, much less when you're the Pittsburgh Steelers struggling the way that they are.
Does that help Kendrick Green's Pro Football Focus grade with the tackle?
Yeah, I can tackle. I can see why you played D-tackle coming out of high school.
Oh, Lord, that was a jailbreak, was it not? Unfortunately ended up in a turnover. And hey, Kendrick Green saved a touchdown there, so kudos to that. But, I mean, it was just a mess. That, I mean, for this team to have used the draft capital that they used on, 4 offensive players, they're just not getting a return from it, as rookies outside of really Freiermuth. And, look, I mean, Najee gets you yards after contact, but unfortunately, a lot of that contact's coming behind the line of scrimmage there. He did have the explosive run. I love explosive runs. So he did have an explosive run off the right side there. I think it was a nice block by Gentry, a nice block by Ray, and I think who's the other one over on it? So I think Deontay was over on that side on that run there. So kudos to them overall. But this offense is a mess, man. I mean, absolutely a mess. Even the flea flicker didn't feel like the timing of it was very good, and then there was pressure obviously involved. And then, oh boy, that 4th down toss.
Yeah, let's talk about that play. I did a breakdown of it this morning for Steelers Depot that goes through what went wrong, and you got to give credit to Melvin Ingram for kind of being able to see that one coming. And I think some of the eyes of the receivers, Claypool and McLeod, their eyes are straight to the inside. You can kind of tell like they're trying to look at who they're targeting for on that crack toss play, and Ingram comes over the top. And I mean, Claypool, there wasn't he and Gentry ended up blocking each other on that play. I was still short of those guys blocking each other because they're trying to crash down. Ingram flows over the top, and so I have a screen grab of it. There's 5 Chiefs coming to Harris with 1 block or a core 4 in front, and so you're just dead to rights on that play. Honestly, I've seen, and I could not for the life of me find the tweet about it. It was about maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, that there is some stats that show that toss plays on 4th down are more effective than runs up the middle. But I think regardless, you can't run the football there if you're the Steelers because A, it's late in the first half. You need some yards. You need to, be able to drive the field. And then B, you couldn't run it all in the first half anyway, toss plays or not. I think like you said, the first play of the game was a toss play that went nowhere. And so I'm not sure why there's any sort of emphasis on trying to run the ball at all on 4th and 1.
Yeah. Didn't on that 4th down play, didn't that wasn't there a DB that kind of jabbed Claypool backwards on that and created a lot of that mess?
I mean, it's a little hard to tell. I don't think so. I think Claypool was trying to come down to crack Ingram, and Ingram kind of swam him over the top, and then him and Gentry ended up kind of colliding, and then I think Turner ended up taking out Claypool's legs on that play at the very end of that one. But I have the GIF up on the site if you want to go back and take a look at it.
Okay. I looked at when I was looking at it last night, I kind of viewed it as if kind of getting stabbed, because I thought he got shocked backwards there at the snap of the football. I might be wrong. Might have been somebody else. But
yeah, he might have. I mean, I think he's trying to come down on Ingram, and the DB kind of gets in those pads a little bit. But I mean, Ingram made a great play there to kind of disrupt that whole thing. But it was ugly all around.
Right. I mean, look, man. It didn't work, right? That's all that matters. And,
yeah.
Well, was that the play that Canada had a reaction after up in the booth? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one where he throws his hands up, and I like Chris Morgan's expression next to him, really just emotionless, just kind of like, yep, that one knew that one wasn't going to work, and so I just kind of the in my head, that's what I was thinking.
He's the Steelers emo, right? Emo coach, but
Yeah.
Look, not a lot, and there's going to be a lot of talk this week about Matt Canada. Continue to talk about Matt Canada if he needs to stay. I mean, this thing goes a lot of layers deeper than just the offensive coordinator, though. I mean, you don't have a quarterback that's mobile. The talent that you have on that offensive line. I mean, for God's sakes, LeGlue is your left guard. A practice squad player. Kendrick Green just, a nightmare of a rookie season for him. Who else there? Moore, very inconsistent. Chikwama Corfor had probably been the Steelers' best offensive lineman of late. And then Trey Turner, up and down all season there. So you mix in, that and you being down your, really one of your best, third down kind of players in Pat Freiermuth. And just not what I'm getting at. There's just not a lot to work with all the way around offensively. And, Canada's magnifying those problems more than he's minimizing them.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to make knee-jerk reactions about should guys get fired or not in the middle of games right after losses because of the emotion of it all. I don't think it's been a very successful season overall. I think there's some things Canada has done, well, but that list is kind of shrinking as of late. Just overall, again, it's those slow starts, those bad first halves. This team's been outscored. God, what's the number now? 120. I forget what the number even is. It's like I think it's 114-19 in the first half of their last 6 games. Pittsburgh's been outscored. And so, I mean, just every single week, how do you start faster? We got to start faster, and they don't. And you just kind of rinse, repeat with the same questions and lack of answers. And so, is that all on Canada? No, it's on, personnel too. But at some point, you have to be able to figure out a way to overcome that stuff. And Canada seems like he has no idea how to do that.
5 games now in a row, right? No touchdowns in the first half. You have to go back to 1940, the Pirates. So let's go Bucks. Throw that in there. But it was 1940, right? Was the last time this happened? 5 games.
Yeah, well, they didn't have a first half touchdown in the first 5 games, or in 5 straight games, I should say.
That's obviously serious, right? You would think that you would get at least one touchdown somehow happen in there. Look, here's one thing. They talk about the slow starts in the past, and Thomas says how they use it as a fact finding mission and all like that. That's all fine and good, and props to them for maybe trying to change it up with the flea flicker, I guess, and throw that in there. But outside of a couple of fantastic catches by. And that's one thing we need to point out is Chase Claypool did make a couple of great catches early in this game, really back-to-back plays, I think, as well. Over the middle kind of, you would like to see him not have to double catch that first one, but at least he caught it. And then the second one, had to go up high, kind of a back shoulder-ish kind of catch, I guess, if you will. And he made the catch there. But outside of his 2 catches, and the Deontay catch on, I think, the second play of the game. I mean, and obviously the touchdown late in the game. There wasn't a lot. You have Najee not seeing passes again, I don't think, later in the game, and just the screen game's just, oh Lord, you hold your breath every time you see that coming there. There's just not a lot of talent across the board offensively. Deontay Johnson's a nice skilled player, and Najee Harris can break some tackles for you. But outside of that, what do you have on offense right now?
Yeah, I get that, but I think about 2019, and this 2021 team is scoring barely more than it did in 19 when there was far less talent, including, of course, not having your quarterback. And so, there are obviously the offensive line's a mess and a wreck, and if your O-line's bad, it is hard to do a whole lot and kind of build off of that. But, you have Johnson and Claypool and Harris, and of course, you still have Ben. And so, this team should be more productive than it is. They're not going to be a top 5 offense, make no mistake, but this team and this offense should be more effective, more efficient, more potent than where they're at, which is, right now they're basically bottom of the barrel. And that just, to me, there's more talent than like, if you're the the Jets or the Jaguars, you kind of would get that. But if you're the Steelers and there is some pieces there, you should be able to do something in the first half of these games.
Yeah, you would think for sure. Look, I mean, everything's on the table at this point when it comes to the coaching staff going into the offseason, right? I mean, we were already talking about Keith Butler and the likelihood of him probably not being back in 2022. We've talked about the wishy-washiness of Matt Canada. Heck, Matt Canada might say deuces, peace out, Right. Obviously, Adrian Clem sounds like he's going to be gone. So, yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question that you could see wholesale changes across this thing.
So you think there's a chance that Canada's – do you think he has a chance he'll be fired, or would he just leave on his own?
Yes.
Path? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean – it's possible. It would certainly be pretty rare for this to happen in Pittsburgh, but, I'd have to think about it some more. I hate trying to make those determinations personally right after these losses when emotions are still kind of running high. But, I mean, I would not be crushed if Canada was gone after this year.
No, I don't think a lot of people would be. Now, it'll get into how much is he limited by the mobility,
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to what we've talked about for years and years and years. A good offensive coordinator doesn't try to round peg square hole or square peg round hole. You make the most out of the type of personnel that you have instead of trying to put your system in. You make the system fit the players there, and obviously they don't have a mobile quarterback in one Ben Roethlisberger. But I mean, here's the thing: they should have done a better job with this thing along the way of personnel and thinking 4 or 5 games into this thing. With Kendrick Green, thinking, oh man, maybe we should look at something at the trading deadline along those. How much better would this offense be, Alex, if they would have had a more capable center?
Slightly, but I don't think it's changing the wholesale issues on this team. I don't know what center you could have gone out there to get and would have made your team significantly better. So I mean, it would have helped, sure, but I don't think in any sort of meaningful way.
All right. Well, anyway, they obviously have lacked in personnel along that line. We could talk about the Ebron injury, but that's not where the wheels came flying off going over the railroad track there. Juju obviously was a big loss. That's something else that you can look at. I mean, God bless Ray McLeod and him the try hard award. Okay. Especially when it comes to blocking, but I mean, I've talked about this kid coming out of last season, it kind of a carryover from the whole Ryan Switzer thing. This guy I'd much rather have Eli Rogers in the slot.
Oh, sure.
Than I would Ray McLeod. Okay. And I mean, you keep trying to wrap around that. You've got guys on the practice squad. But I tell you what, Anthony Miller must suck. I mean, really. And Steven Sims must absolutely suck. If those two guys can't get promoted, activations and get helmets on game day. I mean, I realized when they were first new, you weren't going to rush them into this thing, but how long have them two guys been on that practice squad now? And
months.
And you can't tell me that those guys, with the experience and the plays that they've made, you can't find a way to get them on the field other than Ray. Look, if anybody wants to take this as disrespect to Ray, have at it because that's what it is. This guy is not an NFL 50 play a game wide receiver, period. And they're trying to make it that. They're running teams are getting smart. They're trying to take away Deontay Johnson as best they can, trying to take away Chase Claypool, and that leaves your slot guy. And He is just not a guy that you can run out there for 50 plays a game and do what you're doing with him.
In his career, he's averaging 5.67 yards per catch. That's the second lowest in NFL history of a wide receiver with 50-plus receptions. Ryan Switzer's on the top 5 lowest list, too, by the way. So he literally is like the new Ryan Switzer. It's a very short route tree overall. There is not much of a vertical component to it one bit. But, heck, they don't even use the receivers beyond those top 3 of Johnson, McLeod, and Claypool. I mean, James Washington played, I think, 20 2 snaps yesterday, 31%, and most of that came in garbage time, 2 targets, no catches. And so this guy can't even see the field. Talk about a guy waiting to get out of Pittsburgh. It's James Washington. Second that free agency hits, he's deuces. He's out of there. And then Cody White's still in this roster for some special teams, I suppose, but not making an impact there, but caught more passes and played more snaps than Washington did yesterday. So, yeah, I'd be all for it. I mean, Tomlin talks about overturning stones, and do they really do that? I mean, they kind of do a little bit defensively, but offensively, do they really make many changes? No. And so I'm not, when Tomlin talks about that stuff, it's kind of hot air because they do not really turn over a lot of stones offensively.
You got to tip your hat what they did with Montravius Adams, right? But I mean,
sure, I said defensively. Offensively, though, they don't have that kind of turnover or change. And I mean, and some of that defensively has been because they've had to because of all the injuries, and so that's kind of forced their hand at times.
Well, that's why I go back to what I said about the center position there. I mean, we're talking about the same thing every week with Kendrick Green. I mean, it's not just like a good game for him is not being on the ground 6 times in a game. That's basically what a good game is for him now. You got to recognize at some point this is not working out too well. Whatever he needs to do, obviously you're not going to cut the kid, all right? But they should have done something, I think, by the trade deadline. Whatever they could have done out there, and maybe get another center in there.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a lot of draft capital. I don't know what's even out there. I'm not going to hindsight it too much.
James Washington went out trying, a bag of footballs and James Washington, who and look, didn't the Dolphins cut some? We'd have to go back through this and look at every move and who was on whose roster. Well, obviously, we're not going to spend the time to do that, but something would have been better than what they've done, which is absolutely nothing.
Well, I mean, you could just play. I know he was hurt for a time, but play Hassenauer. I mean, at center at the release, and I think, I know Green has the calf injury. We'll see what his status is.
They better play Hassenauer now in these last at least against the Browns. Would I don't care if Kendrick Green's calf is fine or whatnot. You got to do something different there, and that different. I mean, who would ever thought we would got to the point? Boy, I sure hope Hassenauer starts. But that's where we're at now.
Yeah. I'm all for it.
You got to make chicken salad out of chicken. You know what? Sometimes, but I mean, he talks about turning over the stones and all like that. You're right. He has it. They've done it more on defensive side of football than they have on the offensive side. Well, if they're not want to do it because they don't want to hurt the kids' feelings. Oh my God. Look, we are bored. We say we're going to give Kendrick Green up until week, or at least me, week 5, week 6 of next season. I don't know if I'm going to be able to last that long.
Yeah, I've been against it. I think this offseason, if you have a chance to find someone, if you have a Linderbaum or whoever, you go for it. You don't bank on Green turning this thing around night and day.
I mean, getting stronger ain't going to keep him on his feet,
right.
And moving him. I keep seeing people say, move him to guard, let him go back to his natural position. You know what stuck out on the tape? We said this. I know I did. I think you did too, right from the get-go. Just looking at his tape at guard, the guy ends up on the ground too much, and that week 1. I retweeted something this morning that I put after going through that tape of that Bills game, saying, one thing that we talked about during the offseason in college was Kendrick Green on the ground. He needs to clean that up, and I had a still shot of him on the ground in that Bills game. Here we are now, week 16 of the season, same old thing with him, and it just is not getting better with him.
Maybe I'll post a clip of it. I don't know if I ever did, but I have it in my archive somewhere of rookie minicamp. And there was a play where he gets bull rushed and ran over by one of the tryout guys. And I looked at that and said, that's not a good sign when a tryout guy is running over your starting center and your 3rd round pick. And so that's kind of the first sign I went, this might not work out great for the Steelers. And it's not gotten a whole lot better since I understand this team has put a ton on this kid's plate, and he's swimming right now. He's drowning in probably this rookie season, but man, it is not looking good for him. And I would start J.C. Hassenauer at center or Monday night against the Browns.
Right. If you get Kevin, keep fingers crossed they get Kevin Dotson back. He might look like a damn Pro Bowler out there. in that line. But if you get him back at left guard this week, and hopefully Trey Turner, that whatever he's dealing with knee wise isn't serious there, I would most definitely play Hassan Howard at center, Kevin Dotson at left guard, Trey Turner at right guard, and see how that goes. If it doesn't go any better, oh well, at least you tried.
It can't go much worse. So,
right.
What do you got to lose at this point? So, any other thoughts here offensively? I think we covered it pretty well. Just lackluster, poor turnovers were big in that one, poor situational football. And if the Steelers can't do those things, they will not win. And they did not win.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you hate to see Deontay kind of have the game that he had coming off of a week where you're talking about him, maybe being slept on as a Pro Bowler. And maybe that's a good example, probably why he wasn't. And he's a very talented player. He is, to me, the most talented wide receiver that this team has, but got to hold on to the football, can't drop footballs. And obviously not, there are a lot of people on that offensive side of football did not have great games whatsoever. And he, he was one of them, unfortunately.
Let's just quickly talk about some of the decision-making in this game. The idea of letting Ben semi-finish that one out, but not finish it out the whole way. They let him have the touchdown drive and then pulled him for Rudolph. And so Ben said he didn't want to come out, but Tomlin said that you were done. Any thoughts there, or is it just whatever?
I was a bit surprised they got him out of the game, I got to admit.
Yeah.
And if he would have had his way, he would have stayed in there. But does it matter after the turnover going back in and try? We get it. Nobody quits. We get it. Okay, nobody wants to quit. We get it, but there comes a time where you just gotta pull the ripcord, man. Mm-hmm. And those extra Najee carries later on in the game sure were needed, right?
Yeah, weird to me.
Guy gonna be pushing 400 touches and throw him out there down 36 to whatever it was, 10 or 3 or whatever when he continued to get carries there. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to get him to is the rookie rushing record Steelers history really that important? I don't know. Maybe it is.
Maybe it is. He set the receiving record, most receptions in a season, 67. So it broke Claypool's record last year. So there's something. Though the weirdest to me, though, and again, does it really matter in hindsight? Not really. But late fourth quarter, Steelers were down 30-0. It's 4th and 10 from the Chiefs 11. Offense is on the field. Tomlin keeps the offense out there. Well, glue falls starts. Now it's 4th and 15, and Tomlin decides to kick the field goal. Again, I don't like the idea of kicking it in that situation, regardless. But even if you want to, 4th and 10, let's go for it. 4th and 15, too far. I mean, I don't. Someone explain the logic and consistency or lack thereof to me.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. And I think you tweeted about that live end game too there. I didn't get that.
Yeah, just pick a lane. Either we're kicking it or we're going for it. Not this weird, 4th and 10, 4th and 15. I ran the numbers. The percentages are converting about the same, about 20%. So it's no difference there. And so that's my terrible take today, or at least part of my terrible take today. So again, it doesn't matter. It's 30-0. They're not going to win the game. Who cares, I guess. But it's just some of those Tomlin gut-isms that confuse you.
Right. What'd you think about the Ray taunting call and Tomlin's response to that?
I get what Tomlin's saying. I mean, I don't think McLeod isn't taunting the way that guys who've been flagged for taunting have taunted. But just if you see a dude in front of you, just turn away and then celebrate. You can celebrate, whatever, that's fine, but just don't get in the guy's face.
Yeah, Tomlin's on that competition committee and all like that, right? And
Tomlin's been all in favor of the taunting rule. Now it hurts him. He's like, I don't like that taunting rule too much.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. You kind of, it's a but type situation there. And how about tell your players not to signal first down when your X points, test their awareness. If we're X amount of points down, I don't want to see you signaling no damn first down or flexing in the end zone or whatnot. Go get back in the damn huddle. Let's see how people's awareness is on that. Look, I understand the emotion of the game and yada yada, but I mean, there comes the awareness factor there.
Yeah. So overall, Dave, this one very
He
much.
says, I think here's what he said about the Ray taunt penalty. I categorically disagreed with it. I thought that Ray was signaling first down and he turned around to do so. And the guy just happened to be there. I think we got to exercise some common sense. And I think he's talking about exercising common sense from the referee end of it.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, Tomlin's been all for this rule, and intent does not matter. You turn and face a guy, signal first down. It looks like it's taunting, and so they're going to call it. And regardless whether that's right or wrong, I mean, that's the way the rule is. So, Tomlin, you reap what you sow. That's what I would have to say.
All right, we complained about it now, and I think we offered some. People say, "Man, all you guys do is rip on this team week in, week out." Okay,
they're making it easy.
Sure. Sure. But I think we also offered up some people say, well, what would you guys do? And normally, it's part of the analysis that it's fun to throw out there. I mean, there's a realistic aspect and a non-realistic aspect, and it's fruitless for us to kind of get into the non-realistic aspect of maybe what we would hypothetically do. But I mean, from a more kind of realistic aspect, I think we have now kind of addressed that, right? At least I'm full board. J.C. Hassenauer should start at center. I don't think I'm getting much of a pushback from you on that. I would really consider bringing up Anthony Miller or Steven Sims or both from the practice squad and seeing what I could get out of it. If those guys can't learn the playbook by now, be comfortable in what they're doing offensively, then why even have them on the practice squad at this point? Sure. I mean, look, God bless Cody White, but I mean, what is that guy going to give you out there? I mean, he got 3 catches, two or three catches late in that game, but what was that? I mean,
it's more of a special teams aspect for him. He's a kick coverage guy. And not saying he's irreplaceable, but that's what you'd have to work to replace.
Well, I get Witherspoon out there, whatever. And I know Witherspoon's that's not his forte. I would work around having to make sure I have Cody White on my active 48 players, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I'd be for Hassenauer, and I like Hassenauer better at center than I do at guard. So I'm more willing to give that a shot. I'd bring up Miller. I mean, again, you're kind of really working on the edges here for a team with bigger, more central problems. But I mean, yeah, again, the idea of Tomlin saying we're going to overturn stones and try new things, and really they don't try new things offensively. They kind of just do the same thing with different people. And in terms of they're doing the same stuff with McLeod they were doing with Juju and expecting McLeod to be Juju, and that's just not going to work. And so that's the frustrating part to it.
And obviously you got a guy in Anthony McFarland Jr. who was on COVID, so he wasn't available to you. But do you really need Ballage and Snell out there? Pick one, put somebody else on special teams, and dress Ray and get him on the field and see what you can pull out some of that old Maryland stuff that you used to do with him or whatnot. But that's another guy that it looks such another wasted draft pick, another running back draft pick. Man, if you're going to be that wasteful with running backs and not pick good ones, and just you know what I'm a big fan of, Alex. I'd have 8 undrafted free agent running backs in camp every year. 8 of them. All right. I'm not kidding.
I know. I can hear it. And trust me, my ears feel it right now.
And I would scout the rest of the league during the preseason as well too. And I would steal me a running back that I could give touches to. Every other team seems to have an undrafted running back, if not 2, that I think, man, how's that kid ripping it up here? And that's what I would do there. So either get Anthony McFarland on the field or cut him. That's where I come at down.
Sure. I'm trying to figure out, to use your Two Bobs quote here, what exactly do you do here, Kalen Ballage? Hasn't played an offensive snap in a month, plays about a quarter of the special team snaps, and most of those are on the kick return team as one of the up man. So, I mean, that's fairly replaceable. I mean, McFarland couldn't do that, but you could find someone else to do that, a tight end or whatever. And so what is Ballage's role here? It's nothing.
Who is the Falcons? I've railed on that kid coming out saying, boy, you better hope your playbook, Cordella Patterson. I railed on that kid when he hit the NFL and not too long thereafter, talking about, man, you better hope your playbook is like a coloring book. You better not use words too terribly long, because that guy is dumb as a box of rocks. But I'll be damned if that guy ain't carved himself out a role. If you want to have one guy that you can throw back in my face as a major FU, besides maybe say Chris Jones, who they just played the other day, because I didn't, as I mentioned, I never saw it with Chris Jones on his tape. Cordella Patterson, I ought to write that guy a personalized note. You know what? And apologize to him, because not only is that guy able to still be a functioning return man in the NFL, he can play wide receiver. He can play running back. I mean, he's kind of a Swiss Army knife guy on the offensive side of the ball. He'll block for you and all like that. And here the Steelers have guys like Ballage and Anthony McFarland Jr. can't even get a helmet. Even when he's healthy now at this point.
Jalen Samuels was a wash. He's no longer with the team.
Jalen Samuels, do something. Do something different than what you're doing. And people say, well, they did. They drafted a running back in the first round. Well, look, I'm going to end up being right about that being a wrong decision. I'm telling people right now I'm going to end up being right about that.
All right. Yeah, Patterson became literally one of the greatest return men in NFL history. So, I mean, kudos to him. And he's been in this league for a long time. And so he's had not an amazing career, but better than people think. Really good career.
You know what? You'd probably tell that kid to go out there and play linebacker. He's not a kid anymore. He's a grown man. He's been in the NFL so long now. But you tell him to go out there and play inside linebacker, he'd probably go out there and play inside linebacker for you. You know it? And once again, I railed on him because of his smarts and all like that. I mean,
what was the issue with his smarts? Was there some story? How did you get a feel for his lack of football IQ?
I mean, from the get-go, they had to constantly just from what I remember with his story is he constantly had to be, almost play-by-play on from the sideline, had to be told what his job on the play was.
Okay. I got you. Well, anyway, let's bring it back to Pittsburgh. Let's try to find the silver lining here again, because no one's surprised Pittsburgh lost to the Chiefs. I'm disappointed with how poorly they played, the margin of which they lost. That's not acceptable. That's not something you should just say, okay, whatever, too. But you kind of assume that we're not going to beat KC. And so if you win out, if you beat the Browns, you beat the Ravens, two teams Pittsburgh has beaten this year, you probably get in the playoffs. You probably you still a chance you could win the North, more likely a wild card spot is what ends up happening for Pittsburgh. So let's not consider this season over, because it's still very much in play.
I mean, it is. It would have been nice to have the Ravens beat the Bengals in that game, right?
Sure.
But that obviously didn't happen. They did get some help with the Chargers losing. I don't know. I mean, technically, they're going to need still a lot of help, I think. I kind of view it as it's the AFC North or one of the remaining wild card spots there. But if you do win out, and if the Bengals lose out, then the Steelers get the division. Plain and simple.
Right. If the Bengals win one more game, though, they get the North. Right. If they win one of their two final games, correct.
All I know is the Steelers don't get the North if the Bengals win one more game, or tie one more game.
Yeah. Well, that'll put the Bengals at 10 wins if they win one more game, and the Browns can't, right, and the Ravens can get 10, but the Bengals are going to have tiebreaker over them, I think.
Okay, all right. One more win, then the Bengals get the division then.
Right. So let's assume for a moment the Bengals get a win in their final two games, and so they take the North. Steelers 9-7-1. Does that get you a wild card spot?
Well, yeah. Let's look and see what the standings look like right now here, conference-wise.
We'd have to probably use one of those playoff scenario generator things that ESPN or other places have, but I can't say that for sure. And you're right; you'd have to see how the rest of the AFC goes. It's so jumbled up.
Right. There is 1, 2. Look at it this way: there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other teams in the AFC that already have 9 wins.
Well, okay. but four of those are going to be division winners, right?
Okay. I'm just saying, the Steelers cannot finish with more than 9 wins, right?
Right. Sure.
So all those, if any of if any or all of those teams get to 10 wins, and the Steelers can't, regardless of where those teams go in finishing the division, they can't. And two of those teams already have more than 9 wins, the Titans and Kansas City. So the Steelers are not going to be able to catch any one of those teams. You need Buffalo technically to lose out, or Indianapolis to lose out, or New England to lose out. What are the odds of any of those three, and or the Cincinnati? But I mean, the Cincinnati is a whole different story because that's the division. So I'm not counting Cincinnati as a wild card, because you're either going to get the division or you're not when it comes to Cincinnati. All right, so and if you beat Cincinnati division, or if you finish ahead with them, it doesn't come into wild card play; it comes into division play there. All right. Yeah. So my point being is there's one. There are 6 teams with 9-6 or better record. How many of those teams are going to not win another game?
Well, let's map it out this way. Let's say the top 4 seeds, the division winners are the Chiefs. They're going to win. They've already clinched the West. Let's assume the Bengals win one more game. They're going to clinch the North. Let's just pick the Titans to win the South, and let's just say the Bills or the Patriots. Let's just choose the Bills. They're on top technically right now in the East. And so let's say it's Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, and Titans. They win the division. Is that fair?
Okay, yeah. All right.
Okay,
so that leaves you New England and Baltimore. That leaves you 3 wild card spots. That leaves you Indianapolis, New England, and Baltimore. Or let's start with Indianapolis and New England. Both those teams have 9 wins. So right. you what are the odds of both Indianapolis and New England losing out?
Pretty low.
Right. So
I have not seen the schedules, but I assume it's low.
All right. And if any one of those teams get one more win, then the Steelers can't catch them.
Correct.
All right. So that leaves the one, like I said, it leaves one wild card spot. Right.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. So, okay. So what does that look like? So you got the Chargers 8-7, the Raiders 8-7.
And those two teams play each other, don't they?
I assume so, but I don't know. I have not looked at the schedules. And the Ravens 8-7. And then also the Browns, but let's take the Browns out of it for a moment.
You're going to take care of you're either going to take care of the Ravens or you're not yourself.
Yeah, I was saying, Pittsburgh has to win out. If they lose to the Ravens, if Pittsburgh does not win out, they do not make the playoffs. They cannot get in at 8-1. It's not going to happen in the AFC. So they have to win out. We're under that assumption right now. So 9-7-1, they've beaten the Ravens. They've taken care of the Ravens at that point.
Okay, the Chargers and the Raiders play the final week of the season. So one of those teams, barring some sort of tie, obviously, is going to have one more win. At least one more win.
Yeah, okay. But Pittsburgh's not eliminated, so there's still a path for them. So I assume they could still get some sort of tiebreaker. They can still finish ahead, obviously. So that's what you're looking for, essentially. Obviously, Pittsburgh has to win out. And so, okay, basically what you're saying is, and we're him-hawing around it, they're either going to win the North, which is pretty unlikely, or they're going to get the 7th seed, or they're not going to make the playoffs. Those are the 3 most likely, almost certain scenarios.
And they absolutely have to obviously win the last 2 games.
Yes, right. Do that. Bengals, if they win another game,
a long
they're going
to get there. It's Monday. I don't know.
We're working through it. I mean, I try not to look at the scenarios too much because you can make yourself crazy going through a bunch of hypotheticals, and we'll just see how it plays out. But that's kind of where you're looking at right now. Obviously, you got to win out and go from there.
Does it matter if they get in or not?
I'm always rooting for them to get in.
Sure, I'm rooting for it too. But if they win one game, I can't see it being multiple games past then.
Yeah. All right, Dave. I think we kind of covered things. I say all that to say the season is not over. It feels like that when you have a really crappy loss and this team was miserable and horrible and not making any excuses for it. But the season is not over.
It will be over if they lose to the Browns on Monday night.
Yes, or the Ravens.
Or the Ravens. And look, just went out. Just went out, and things will take care of itself.
All right, Dave, let's get to some read emails and close out today's show.
Oh, do we have to? Remind people what we got going on tonight, too.
Yeah, we'll have our live stream tonight, Dave and I, on my YouTube channel, Alex Kozora, from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So come hang out with us, vent with us, and talk about anything else that is on your mind.
All right, these are going to be, we'll fly through these. Antonio Frazier writes in, David Knox, longtime listener and follower of the site. You guys are the best place for Steelers news and commentary. I'm not a fan of people losing their jobs, but the competence of the play calling is horrible. Situational play calling makes no sense to me. when you run a flea flicker and you can't run the ball. Also 4th and 1, you run a toss play to the short side of the field. The good old boys club hiring from within needs to stop, and you have to make changes to see change. The defense is constantly out of position and don't look like they even know what is going on in the situation. Do you guys think it's time for a change? I think we kind of addressed that earlier. Look, I mean, technically, when Matt Canada was hired to be the quarterback's coach, what was the overall narrative when that happened?
I was just happy they hired a quarterback's coach because they didn't have one for 2 years. They were asking Randy to do it.
And from the outside, not from the good old boy club, unless you consider just a short, brief time at Pitt being part of that. I suppose you could tie in the whole Maryland thing. But did you view the hiring of Canada as a quarterback's coach, as a good old boy? When he was hired, there was thought and discussion that guy was probably going to be the next coordinator, right?
Yeah, and there was some excitement about it because he was an innovative guy, college guy, motion guy. So people were excited about the hire.
Yeah, they're excited until they're not.
Exactly.
Till 2 games in, until they want to fire him, right?
Yeah.
Look, Antonio, here's my thoughts on it. I think all of it's on the table at this point. I mean, we've had several discussions about Keith Butler, how probably unlikely to be back. And then, when it comes to Canada, I think you can make a strong argument of, especially if this is it for Ben, of wiping it clean, and go and trying again, if you will. But who it obviously probably wouldn't be anybody from inside. That could be Mike Sullivan, right?
I mean, maybe. I wouldn't do a hard no to that, given his resume. And you could also say that Canada, gets to start fresh with a quarterback that's more of his. And again, Canada's worked with mobile and non-mobile quarterbacks, but you could argue that needs another year to kind of see how this group takes another step and comes together. So I don't know. I mean, it could happen, but I'm not really still expecting that Canada's one and done as the OC because it just doesn't happen in Pittsburgh.
Sure, and I think I said the same thing in the last. But I mean, I think all of it's still. Would you bet your house that Canada's going to be back in 2022?
No. And I'm not. I think it's fair to talk about should he be the OC next year. I'm not trying to shut down the conversation. I'm just trying to maybe temper expectations. Also, by the way, that toss was to the open side, not the short side of the field. Whatever that's worth.
All right, that's what he.
I'm sure people feel better.
Right, yeah. Let's go to this email here. Hello, David Ox, long time, first time. Do you think the short-term quarterback who will get us by until the next first-round draft pick may already be on a team? I'm, of course, referring to one Joshua Dobbs. He's a veteran. He's mobile. And if he's between him and the likes of Jacoby Brissett or Marcus Mariota, I think I'd take Dobbs, and it fits the team's next man up philosophy. You all reasonably speculated at the end of the preseason when he went on IR that we could expect to see him released with an injury settlement or let go as soon as he's healed up. That Dobbs would be clamoring to get out of town and earn a backup role on another team. Yet here he stays holding the clipboard for Ben. Why stay unless he's maybe been promised a shot next year? I've barely seen mention of him on the depot this season. Just wondering if you think it's a possibility. Well, first and foremost, in order for him to even get a shot, look, we don't know what his health status is. For one, I mean, you would think he's healed by now, but
yeah, or he will be the next couple months, right?
But I mean, do we know for sure that he's 100% healthy right now and could be released with an injury settlement, or just released out? I mean, basically, it wouldn't be with injuries. The Steelers don't like necessarily paying people if they can get away with not pay him. There is no difference in cutting him right now from IR as a healthy. You can cut healthy players from IR.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you were to cut him, is there this big fear that he's going to land with somebody else and that you would not be able to re-sign him next offseason?
No, I think they like Dobbs though because he's like an extra coach. Basically, he's always next to Ben on the sidelines, even for road games. They're talking and going over stuff, so they just like his football IQ.
Look, I think he's a great kid. I think he's got a great mind. But I mean, do you really want to sit here and talk about, I suppose I get it if you're talking about Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota. But I mean, is he the answer?
I get what the Raiders are saying, but I don't expect that to be the case. I think they're going to go out of house, and if they're going to go in-house, it'll be someone more like Mason Rudolph.
And as far as not having discussions about him, I mean, he's on IR, and there's because did not get there as part of a week one rostered player. There is no way for him to return from IR unless you cut him from IR and then re-sign him back. That's the only way you're going to get him back on the 53-man roster. And we would only be speculating that we think he is 100% ready to play right now, health-wise.
Yeah. Haven't thought about Dobbs because the dude he's been on IR. So we don't talk about a lot of guys. We don't talk about Juju too much because those guys go to IR and that's that.
Seth Bergstein writes in 114-19. To be blunt, 114-19 and 6 first half screams out terrible planning and preparation. People scream about the roster, but it's not 114-19 bad. Yeah, we're gonna get some pushback there. Said this is a bad offense. They got some bad players on that offense line, and they always seem to do better once the game plans are scrapped. Will new coordinators be enough, or do we have to start looking at the head man in Mike Tomlin? Thanks.
Well, I think the responsibility falls on everyone, and the buck stops with Mike Tomlin, so he certainly deserves some of the criticism too. These slow starts are habitual, they're horrible, they're detrimental, and they don't get fixed. And I think that falls on everybody, but certainly it falls on the head coach because he's the head coach.
Look, I've had fun with this throughout the latter part of this season, and I truly mean it. If this team got into the playoffs somehow and won a game, I mean, as bad as this team has been, I think you can say, well, the team wouldn't be in this position if the head coach would have made better blah, blah, blah roster decisions and all like that. I get that. But I mean, as we said at the top of this show, this has been the same thing week in, week out. It's just they've managed to win a few games that they probably should have lost. And who gets credit for that? Ben, Mike, Tom, whoever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can predict the Cam Hayward post-game press conference now. Got to play better.
Right.
Got to get off blocks.
Got to get off blocks.
Run of the football. And, I mean, I'm not mad at him for it. It's just, I mean, he's not wrong, but it's just, you say the same thing, and now it's just tired.
Yeah, we predict the same thing Ben says. If we knew what the problem was, we'd fix it, Yeah,
and Matt Canada Thursday, we just got to, bad play call, that's on me. Got to get better. We've got to get back in there and fix it. I mean, let's take the rest of the week off, Dave. We just predicted how this thing's going to go.
All right. Well, I'm going to take Friday off. But would a different coordinator have produced much different results? I guess would be the hypothetical in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's hypothetical. I mean, is this as good as it gets? No, I think it certainly can be better. I think. Are there issues with this team? Undoubtedly. Is the offensive line a mess? Sure. And it is tough to build things when your O-line is bad. But there is more talent here than a 20-point per game offense that just seems to struggle for the first 45 minutes of games. I refuse to accept this is as good as it gets for this offense.
How much does Ben have a hand in that?
Some, sure. I mean, he's the quarterback. I mean, he's going.
I would honestly be curious. And we'll probably never know. I mean, how much say do you think Ben has during the week as far as game planning and overall play menu to choose from and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I don't know the answers to that. My suspicion is that it's less than he used to have. I think under Randy, I mean, he could do basically whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. I think it's a lot tighter now under Canada.
This has been a season where we go, oh man, this team's dead. They're absolutely. Then they win. Then they win a game. You think, okay, yeah, okay, maybe. Oh, then they get blown out next week. Mm-hmm. But it's been. Go ahead.
I was going to. That's why the season's not over because they're such a weird team. I mean, if they won these next 2 games against the Browns and Ravens, I would not be shocked. I'd be like, yeah, that seems to be in line. They've already beaten those guys, once this year. So that's why I'm just cautioning the season's not over.
I mean, they win some games they're supposed to lose. I mean, that's really been that's really the only difference on a week to week basis. They end up hanging around in some games that they probably should lose, and they end up winning them.
Yep, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. And it goes back to how much can you keep the score down in the first half? If you do that the way they did in the Titans game, then you can win those games. If it's the Chiefs game, the Vikings game, and you can't keep the score down, then they won't be able to win those games.
Joshua Moyer writes in, I feel like RPOs are supposed to put a defender with both pass and run responsibilities in conflict. Do I play the pass or the run? The Steelers seem to do it on a box count. If the box is light, run. If it's heavy, throw. The route always seems to be a slant to a wide receiver. So the corner isn't really in conflict, not having run gap, and wide receiver has to win right away. Plus the slant runs back towards the defensive help. Don't you want to run something away from the defense, stretch them farther apart? He asked, is he crazy?
Well, to begin the year, they were running their RPOs with a lot of out routes, and now they've kind of done more of the glance routes, slant routes, and that's kind of almost been worse because they're throwing it to the slot and the linebackers there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
there's different. Obviously, there's a lot of packages of RPOs.
Sure.
And maybe they need, I guess one thing that you. If you had more autonomy, and which he probably does, I mean, you should be able to get them in and out of certain things based on what you see.
Yeah, you just run a lot of RPOs and they're quick decisions, and if you run enough of them, sometimes some of them get, I think, muddied up because if you run 20 of them a game, not all of them are going to work perfectly, I guess.
Right. But I mean, look. But on the flip side, the only time they've had some success a lot of times because of some RPOs too. So would they even be as good as they are, or good as they have been, if they hadn't been running a lot of RPOs?
Sure. The Browns game.
I said right from the get go, and that boy, this team needed to start running some more RPOs. Well, they started running it, they just never graduated from it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, RPOs, it's like the base offense for this team, and you can use that as a supplement, but it can't be like how you build your whole offense in your run game and stuff like that.
Right. It was smart to go back to that stuff early, back when I was calling for it and all. But I mean, you got to start graduating from that a little bit, and they really just haven't.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
This one from a Black Sun writes in, David Knox, it's with heavy heart, nor do I say this lightly, but Coach Tomlin needs to go. His only weakness is his inability to construct a competent coaching staff. And maybe, are you yawning?
Oh, can you hear that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. The boring email. And maybe, look, I'm with you. I'm tired too, man. I didn't get much sleep. I was got a broken hot water heater this morning. Woke up to. And maybe time management. He has been to 2 Super Bowls and won one with Bruce Arians and Dick LeBeau, both Coach Cowher hires. You give any DC an all-pro defensive lineman in Hayward, a linebacker in Watt, safety in Fitzpatrick, and a handful of first-rounders, they would have way more playoff success than Butler, but I can live with the D. It's the offense that's embarrassing. It seems like the offense has no idea who they are facing till kickoff, then it's a scramble to come up with a competent game plan. They also, for some reason, try to force feed a fringe player. McLeod, Samuel, Switzer. We need to use motion for we seem to use motion for no reason, not to read the defense or put a defender in conflict. Most long-tenured head coaches has a coaching tree. What's Tomlin's? My opinion doesn't matter. Steelers Depot opinion doesn't matter. The NFL will tell you what your staff is like. Never any rumors, speculation, or interest from other teams. We can always rest easy knowing our staff won't get poached by another team. Sorry, he says. Peace and love, George. George got a lot off his chest there.
Yeah, I get the frustration. Again, I don't like to make those. I'm not saying it is knee-jerk, but I just am careful with those things coming off of a loss. I mean, I'm not advocating for Tomlin's firing, and it's not going to happen. So it's a lot of wasted time to talk about it anyway. Anyway, yeah, I'm not in the fire Tomlin camp.
I'm not either. I'm not either, and that'll drive a lot of people say, well, why? Because I don't think you're going to find a better alternative to him. Culture and all like that. Does he need to do a better job? Does the organization need to do a better job with their hirings? Yes, absolutely. They do. The whole coaching tree thing. I mean, I get why there's talk of that, but that doesn't bother me. I just look at the player and dealing with today's player and all like that. He does need to coach better. They all need to coach better, and I have a feeling we're going to see some changes again on the staff. But there's not a single part of me through all this that has thought, man, they should fire Tomlin.
Agreed.
And that will drive people batty, I'm sure. Let's see here. Brian Lando writes in, Matt Canada. Good evening, gentlemen. I'm looking forward to the breakdown of the game as always. In the meantime, I have a genuine question. You'll see all over Steelers Twitter to fire Matt Canada, and understandably so. No TDs in the first half and forever. Tosses on 4th and 1. Prayers down the sideline or players down the sideline, etc. But if we had a coordinator like Eric Bieniemy or someone of that caliber, would it be any better? Our line can't block. Ben has no real threat of mobility. Ben seemingly only wants to run plays he's comfortable with, excludes the middle of the field, and the list goes on. So I guess I'm asking, could even the best offensive mind in the world even fix this? You guys are the best and most honest analysts in the business. Steeler fans are lucky to have you. Thanks for all you do. All right, thanks for that, Brian. I think we kind of addressed that a little bit not too long ago. Would an offensive coordinator do a better job making chicken salad out of this chicken? You know what?
Yeah, like I said, I think certainly it could be better. I don't accept that it's just the best it's going to get. I do understand all the newness though of this team, and there's a lot of adjustments to be made, and you're trying to figure stuff out there with a lot of new pieces and the brand new offensive line. So I think that's probably the reason why Canada will come back. They'll sit there and say there was so many growing pains this year. It's maybe unfair to give a full-throated evaluation of it. But I understand the frustration as well, and I've been critical of Canada, and this has certainly not been a very great year for his first year as an NFL OC.
No, it has not, and there will be a lot of speculation about. I'm sure we'll have several more conversations about this moving forward here. All right, that's a good jumping off point, I think, Alex. We'll get back after it again on Wednesday here. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button there. So in the meantime, we'll be breaking down the tape. We'll be back on Wednesday. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.